What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Austin from One Gamer's Opinion, and today we're trying something different. I got a couple friends with me, and we're just going to be, just talking about games this upcoming year. So I got three guests with me. First, I'm going to start with Josh. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
It's good to have you. Next, I have my friend LordWilboy. How you doing?
Hey, what's up? I'm good. How about you, boy?
I'm doing good. And then last but certainly not least, I have my friend Studofthewest.
How's it going?
It's going good. So I just talked to these three, and I was figuring I wanted to ask them about what are some predictions we have for 2022 in video games. So I came up with a list of a couple questions that we're just going to talk about and look at what we think is going to happen in 2022. So I wanted to start off with Game of the Year for the Game Awards. I know there's the Golden Joysticks and there's a lot of other types of Game Awards, but if I don't label it to a certain one, there's no way I'm going to actually be able to look at this next year and see if we were right. So for Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards, I want to talk about what we think is going to maybe be nominated, what we think could win, that kind of thing. But before we go into that, I wanted to talk about some context for the past winners. So they rebranded the Game Awards in 2014, I think, to the Game Awards. And since then, do you guys know who won the first one in 2014?
I do not.
I should, but I don't. I can't think of it.
Well, Willboy, it's one of your favorite developers.
I'm guessing BioWare.
It is BioWare. It was Dragon Age Inquisition.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna guess that after you said that.
Yeah, so Dragon Age Inquisition won it in 2014. Followed that year, 2015, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. 2016, Overwatch. 2017, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. 2018, God of War. 2019, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. 2020, The Last of Us Part 2. And in 2021, It Takes Two. And I think this year is really interesting because if I look at that list, three of those games are kind of getting sequels this year. Legend of Zelda's supposed to be getting Breath of the Wild 2. God of War is getting God of War Ragnarok. And Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I get Elden Ring is not a sequel to that game, but it is From Software's next big game. So I think it's kind of interesting that a lot of past winners are getting sequels this year, which makes it kind of a cloudy area for predictions. What are you thinking, Josh? What do you think you have predicted for the Game Awards next year?
Yeah, it's very interesting with all the great AAA titles. For me, it's Elden Ring, and then I think God of War Ragnarok are the two that are going to be up there for me. I think Elden Ring is going to get it, though.
You think Elden Ring is going to win?
Yes.
Do any of you guys agree with that?
I do and I don't. It's on my list. My list is the two is Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild 2. I think Breath of the Wild or God of War is going to take it, just because. Not that Elden Ring games From Software games are bad, because I love them. They're some of my favorite games, but people really like the story, and From Software games are not story lore friendly as compared to Breath of the Wild or Ragnarok, in this case Ragnarok, so God of War. So I think one of those two will take it, but obviously we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because if Sekiro Shadows Die Twice hadn't won, then I think you could easily make a case against Elden Ring, because the critics aren't the meme of video game critics suck at video games. They're not going to vote for a From Software game, and so but since it's already won one, it makes it one of those things where it's at least possible.
Yeah. But with that comes in it's the only From Software game that's been nominated. And it's not that Sekiro is bad, but it's not their greatest title.
Elden Ring also won Most Anticipated Game for this year.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying, just because it's anticipation doesn't always mean it gets the game of the year.
I was gonna say I think that actually works against it because when you're so anticipated, let's say Elden Ring's like really good, but like it's not a like upper 90s or mid 90s Metacritic. It's more of like in the 86 to like 90 range, which is still a phenomenal game. A lot of great games fall in that every year, but I think it could underwhelm people because they're so excited that it could result in like actually it hurting its chances at the Game Awards. I personally, this is my kind of thought. I was like, oh, I'm going to try to pick a game that falls in the later half of the year because it will be fresh in the critics' mind. It will work well for it. And so I went back and I looked at the release dates of all of the previous winners since 2014. Only one came out after the halfway point in the year. So after June, so July passed, only one winner's come out since then, and that was Dragon Age Inquisition. It came out in November. All the other ones, I got a couple May releases, a couple March releases, and in April and June. So actually, like earlier part of the year. So I was like, okay, well, if I want to, be an analytics person, kind of look at the past to predict the future, I think I like Horizon Forbidden West to win if I was going to pick just one, because I think people are excited for it, but people had enough problems or like critiques about the first game that it's going to improve on those while also people being very excited for it. And I think the Game Awards, I don't want to say they are going to purposely be inclusive, but if there is a serious contender from a female-led game, and it's one of those situations where Horizon Forbidden West is just as good or like it reviews just as well as all these other games, I could see a couple critics wanting to vote that one above the rest. What do you think about that, Willboy?
I agree, actually, with Horizon Forbidden West. That's who I have winning, either that or God of War. I think both of them definitely have the means to, win it this year.
Yeah, I would say for me, that's my top four.
Yeah.
If all those games come out, we'll talk a little bit later about games we think might slip out of 2022. But I'd say the top four, if they release, are Horizon Forbidden West, Ragnarok, Breath of the Wild 2, and Elden Ring. I think those four are all solid choices. I would be surprised if any of those four are not nominated if they're released. And then from there, it's what other games maybe are coming out this year that aren't released. Do you guys have any maybe hot scoops on games that aren't really announced yet, or at least aren't announced for 2022 that you think might release and could make it into this conversation?
Not for Game of the Year. There's a ton of remakes being done right now that have like zero information out on them, other than, hey, we're remaking this game. Like System Shock's been on the docket for like 3 years now, and we haven't heard, I don't know, anything about that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, other than remakes, probably not.
Yeah. And then going from Game of the Year, I want to talk about like critic scores, and I like to use OpenCritic just because they're easier to like navigate when I'm looking on their website. Like what do you think the highest critic score is going to be this year? And some people might go, well, isn't that going to be the exact same thing as a Game of the Year? And it's not, because I think Game of the Year, except for this past year with It Takes Two, normally a game that has a high marketing budget, a game that is known for being like a triple A prestige game is the one that's going to win. And so it kind of has to have the hype cycle while also being quality. And so like when I look at the highest critic scores, here is a list of the highest rated games last year. So the two that I have last year, the two highest rated were Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, so that expansion. That was the highest. And so for highest critic score, we can talk about potential expansions. I can think of three really big ones coming out this year. And so Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker and Forza Horizon 5 were the top rated or highest rated critic scores last year. Obviously, neither of those won Game of the Year. Then if we go back to 2020, Persona 5 Royal was the highest, followed by Hades. Then The Last of Us Part 2, the actual winner, and Half-Life Alyx. So I think it's easier to be a game that is one of the, if not the highest critic score, but then not actually be considered for Game of the Year, maybe because of the style of the game it is, or like because it's maybe a smaller, nicher thing, like a AA game, or maybe it's an expansion because they're not going to give an expansion Game of the Year, no matter like how great the expansion is, because it's just an expansion to a game. So Wilcox, I want to start with you. What do you think could be the potential one of the highest scoring critic games next year?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. When it comes to that, I am no expert. So I'm just really throwing out guesses here because I really don't know how they do all that and go about doing that.
No, it's all right. I still like to hear your opinion.
So I'm just, for laughs, just kind of throwing out Horizon Forbidden West and possibly Starfield as high ones.
I think Starfield's an interesting one because I think a lot of people think of, oh, well, Skyrim was really buggy. But the Skyrim actually reviewed awesome when it came out. I think it's like in the mid 90s.
Exactly.
And it's not one that's actually going to be in contention, I think, for Game of the Year because it comes out so late.
Yeah.
And the cutoff is normally like mid to early November, and it comes out November 11th. I just don't think it's going to have enough time for the critics to actually be able to finish it and to play it enough to like have the love they have like for Skyrim to make it a Game of the Year contender. But yeah. I could easily see it being possibly the highest critic score if it has a Skyrim-like type of release.
Yes, for sure. I agree.
All right, how about you, Wes? What are you thinking for possible highest critic scores for next year?
For me?
Yes.
Yeah. So this one I don't have like a direct answer. At least I didn't when you first gave us these questions. I'd been pondering over this for a while. Based on just how it seems like how the like Metacritic and all that seem to function, I would say my prediction is probably Breath of the Wild 2. At least that's what it's called. Like people are referring to it as whatever the new Zelda game is.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it probably lands in a mid to the high 90s because that's what most Zelda games land as. For it being such a popular title or series.
Yeah, Zelda always reviews well.
And that's also kind of a biased thing because that's like my favorite game like series of all time. But it's also kind of the truth. So
it really is, especially when you look at the year that the Breath of the Wild original came out. It was the second highest reviewed game that year. The highest, I believe, was Mario Odyssey, which had like a 97 or something like that on OpenCritic. Beating and I believe it was a 95 for Breath of the Wild. So like most other years, Breath of the Wild would have been the top one, but a new take on Mario was able to beat it out. And I just thought it was interesting. Since that rebrand in 2014, no Game of the Year winner has been the top score on Metacritic.
Yeah.
Because I think of as a big example when I think about this is the year that 2018 God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. Red Dead Redemption 2 was more of the critical darling. Not that God of War didn't review well, but it was one of those games that came out and I think Red Dead Redemption 2 scope helped it with the critics, but it didn't hit as many people as hard as something like God of War did. And then looking at Mario Odyssey, I have a sleeper pick for I think that could be the highest critic score because this game gives me a lot of Mario Odyssey vibes when I saw the trailer. And I think Kirby and the Forgotten Land could end up sneaking into like the low 90s and then being like possibly the highest reviewed game this year. So I think, Josh, what do you got? What do you have for some of our top reviewed games?
Yeah, I agree with Wes with Breath of the Wild 2. I think Nintendo really knows what they're doing with their series like Zelda and know how to improve on all their games and yeah.
Yeah. So, Wilboy, you were talking about some potentially Starfield being the highest rated game this year. Next, I want to talk about something that I think we can have thoughts on, but I really think this is going to be the hardest one to predict. Do you guys think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to get a release date? It does not need to have a release date for 2022. I don't think any one of us think it's coming out this year. No. But is it going to possibly get a date for whatever date? Do you think maybe even a window? How about you, Josh, again? What do you think about Elder Scrolls 6 possibly getting a release date or a release window?
I don't think it'll get a release date this year. I've heard that it's going to be coming out after the next Fable game, which the next Fable game doesn't have a release date, so I don't think it's going to be coming out.
Wester Wilboy, what are you guys thinking?
I agree with them. I think the earliest that we're going to get a release date on that is going to be like later next year. So like late 2023, I think at the earliest that we're going to hear anything about that, in my opinion.
Okay, so I think it's farther out. I don't think we're gonna get a release date for the next 2 to 3 years. They
Oh, wow.
they recently said that the game is still in pre-production. They haven't even started making this game yet. There was a tweet that one of them, I can't remember who it was, but one of their developers put out because people were asking about like Starfield and everything, and then it came up in a conversation about how Starfield's they've been always keeping like people updated on it, but yet when it comes to Elder Scrolls 6, they've never said anything, like where it's at in development, nothing. And this guy finally made this statement. It's still in pre-production. Which I know it could go into production like tomorrow. Because obviously at the time that he said that, it was still in pre-production. But if they don't have, a percentile of this game in a digital file somewhere, there's no point of giving us any kind of release date because anything could happen.
I'm kind of on the same page with you. I had down in my notes that I think Elder Scrolls 6 is a 2025 game, so maybe not quite as far out as you think it is, but I think it's going to come out in that range because there was no rush. So I wrote all this down before that big Activision acquisition from Microsoft, but looking at Xbox and like their slate past this year, so into 2023, I think Hellblade 2 is going to be in 2023. They have Everwild. Avowed could be in that 2023-2024 range. We have Fable coming, Perfect Dark. They have a lot of things on the horizon for that 2023 to 2024 zone, and they're not going to rush Elder Scrolls 6. They remember what happened with Elder Scrolls 5 and Skyrim. They don't want to rush it, have it be a thing where it gets good critical reviews, but then, a month later we figure out the doors aren't working right and it crashes all of your PlayStation saves. They don't want something like that again. So I have down that I think we'll get a release window maybe in 2023, maybe, but more than likely not 2024 will be when we hear anything, which is kind of scary to think about, that it'll be like another 2 or 3 years before we hear anything about the new Elder Scrolls. But yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, to add to that, a while back somebody made a statement that like from their staff that the game was supposed to take give you like a, what'd they say, like a 10-year like play. So like obviously the story's not gonna last 10 years, but like there's so much content in the world that people will be playing it for 10 years on this, like on one character. That's what their plan is. And that's a lot, mind you. Like Skyrim did it because they don't know. They honestly have no idea how Skyrim pulled that off. Like the developers don't know.
It is kind of weird to think about how Skyrim came out in 2011.
Yeah.
So it's been 10 years, and then now Starfield's going to release on that same day, 11 years later, for this November. And so I think Starfield's going to buy them time. Especially if Starfield's good. No one's going to be clamoring, I need to have Elder Scrolls now. Like they'll be playing Starfield for a couple years, and I think around 2024 people will start questioning, and that's when they'll need to at least come up with a date.
Yeah.
Because by then I think people will be very worried. But while we're talking about Xbox a little bit, they bought Activision Blizzard and Candy Crush. And I wanted to talk about what are our general thoughts on that? If anyone wants to come in first, what are our general thoughts on Activision Blizzard being bought out by Microsoft?
I hate Microsoft. I think most people know that I don't like Microsoft, just because they're not, in my opinion, user friendly. But I don't like it simply because Same with literally anybody who gets, bought out by a bigger corporation. It's just one corporation gaining more and more power. Just not fun with that, or I don't think that's fun. I like things being spread out. So I'm personally was not too big on that.
I was really excited when I heard the news because I have not been a fan of the way Activision runs things recently, the Activision Blizzard like higher ups. Not to get into like the stuff with Bobby Kotick, but like more of like the way the management delegates how the team is supposed to work and like what they're supposed to work on. I was super disappointed when they made Vicarious Visions basically a Blizzard studio that just works on like Warcraft because that's such a good team. And so I'm hoping that maybe out of this, like we can unfold that. I don't know if that's possible. And then looking forward, like I'm glad that this is going to give protection to a studio like Toys for Bob to work on what they want to work on, and they're not going to be forced to eventually become a Call of Duty studio like it feels every Activision Blizzard team eventually becomes. So I was excited when I first heard it. It is going to be kind of weird thinking about Crash Bandicoot being a Xbox exclusive. And I think personally, when we look forward to exclusives, unless it is a major online game that is focused on microtransactions, it will be an Xbox exclusive. So Call of Duty, I think that will continue to go on PlayStation just because of the microtransaction side of Call of Duty. And potentially Overwatch. I haven't actually played Overwatch, so I don't know how microtransaction heavy that game is.
It's mostly cosmetic.
So maybe that will be a game that becomes an Xbox exclusive. But I think COD will remain multi-platform just because it is such a high moneymaker. And I don't think it's going to push people over to Xbox like they think it would. I think it's better to leave it on all the platforms to make money, and then everything else then just becomes Xbox and PC exclusive. Wes, I know you have a lot of opinions on this.
Yeah. Okay. So to kind of wrap with what you were saying, so I don't think they're gonna take at least not the current version of Overwatch and pull it to one. Just because it's such a large game anymore, it's such a popular game, and it's already wildly out on everything else. It would make no sense for them to like rein it into just Xbox and PC. It's already got. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong on this because it's been a long time since I've played it. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's cross-platform for all three.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. And so I think maybe going forward with like Overwatch 2 or any of its like spin-off games they've talked about possibly making, possibly those could be PC and Xbox exclusives. I don't see that happening with the current running of it. But to get down to the main question is my opinion on the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. It has good sides and it has bad sides. So the good thing, in my opinion, is that after was it 5 years, Kodak's gone.
Yep.
He bought himself time, and then he's gone, which is what everybody that worked there wanted anyways.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good thing.
I hope that the workers and the employees there can hold out for that long. But now that there's someone above him, watching what he does, he's less likely to like run that thing into the ground and then just, walk away. Because that's what a lot of people thought was going to happen, is he was just going to start running the whole company into the ground and then take all as much money and walk out. Like that was a real like prediction. Mm-hmm. Because they have like multiple divisions that are on strike still. On like what, week 12 or 15?
Yep.
World of Warcraft has no true online support right now. They have like a skeleton team of like 5 people that are just keeping the game running. No bug fixes, no patches, nothing. And that's big because that game's been around forever, and they're on top of usually bug fixes and stuff. Mm-hmm. The bad side of it is that the more Microsoft or any studio, mind you, or any company buys up all these studios, it ruins competition in the marketplace. So even if it splits between two, right? Say Sony and Microsoft buy up every, so like EA, Activision, like everything. There is now only the competition between the two companies. Individual studios no longer have a reason to compete with other studios. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And so, thus, when that happens, usually quality plummets. And this isn't any business. It could be about toilet paper. It could be about shovels. Like, if everybody owns one, if one company owns most of the whole market, quality tends to dip and prices tend to skyrocket.
Yep, kind of like internet.
Yeah. Internet providers and stuff are pretty big. Once big companies come in and wipe out little providers, they start jacking up their prices. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing when I think about like the big acquisitions, when I think of like the positives versus the negatives, normally I like when acquisitions happen because it gives security to like those, especially when a smaller team gets acquired. Like, oh, like now they don't have to worry about if this game flops because like they are okay. Like the Microsoft, if they were to buy like a really small team and they come out with this creative game and it doesn't do well financially, but it reviews well, like they'll still maybe consider that a success because of its critical acclaim, or they'll still like give the team another chance because they see the positives. Versus like if they're by themselves and they're publishing by themselves or with a small publishing house, a flop really like hurts them long term. But also, I get really discouraged when I see reports like Sony squashing Days Gone 2, even though that's what the team wanted to do. So I like when they get financial support. I get really discouraged when I see them come in and say, like, nope, you're not allowed to do what you want to do. Which is why I've actually liked Microsoft so far, because it seems like they've been pretty hands-off on their acquisitions. Like, they've bought them and said, like, just make what you want, and we're not going to meddle in your, like, what you need to make, and we're not going to meddle on, like, you have to hit it by this release date. They've kind of just been letting their teams work, and I think that's a potential positive. If Xbox has enough studios under their Xbox umbrella, they can always just say, like, hey, it doesn't matter if this game comes out. I got COD coming out in 2 months. Like, we'll be fine. Like, you delay your game by a year. You can delay Halo for a year. It's fine, because we'll be okay. And so, like, I think, like you said, there's a positive, there's a negative, and I'm hoping the positives end up outweighing the negatives in the end.
Well, I mean, as of right now, it's just one more company. It's not like they're going in and buying up EA and all these other like larger independent companies. Mm-hmm. But in the long run, it adds up. Yeah,
exactly. And so, like, I sent this to you guys a little bit. Like, here's like some of these numbers are from Jeff Keighley. Some of these numbers are ones that I found on my own through some research. Some biggest acquisitions available. That like a lot of these are out of Sony's range. They'd have to be like a Microsoft acquisition. But some of these that are on the cheaper side, in theory, like, could be bought out by Sony if they really wanted to. EA's evaluated at $38 billion. Take-Two, $28 billion. Bandai Namco, $15 billion. Ubisoft, $7 billion. Konami, $6 billion. Square Enix, about $5.5 billion. Konami, $5 billion. Sega, about $3.5 billion. WB's gaming division was listed at $4 billion, but then they sold off about $1 billion of their mobile to EA, and then said they weren't for sale anymore. So I would say maybe about $3 to $4 billion for WB's gaming division. And then these two, I kind of Epic Games, $17.3 billion, and then Valve, since it's a privately owned company, I couldn't really find any numbers. The speculation I was seeing was it'd be at least $10 billion. Probably closer to 15 to 25 is what the value would be, and to actually buy them, it'd probably be somewhere between 30 and 50 billion.
That one's a little difficult too, because they're privately owned and not a public run company.
Exactly.
But also, they run the largest storefront on PC gaming.
Exactly.
It's also where a lot of their wealth comes from. A lot of their profit and a lot of their margins and stuff come from the fact that when people think gaming on a PC, rarely does anybody think to go straight to Epic. Everybody boots Steam. Literally everyone I know, when they get online to play games, the first place they go to find a game to play is Steam.
Yeah, all I hear is belly aching and moaning when a game is like exclusive to Origin or exclusive to the Epic Game Store because they want it on their Steam library.
Yeah. Which they've been doing that like integration. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, because like I have a couple games through them, but it boots through Epic.
Mm-hmm.
And I just noticed it the other day, and it was just like, oh wow, this is like strange. But I mean, I'm okay with that. If they work that into every game, I think it shouldn't hurt anything because Epic's still getting their due.
Mm-hmm. Do you think any of those names I mentioned, if you want to look back over the list, do you guys think any of those could potentially be bought out by Microsoft? Is there any that you think would be a good fit for Microsoft or Sony? Josh, what are you thinking? If you look at that list, what are some maybe good fits for Microsoft or Sony if one were to be bought? Who do you think would go where?
I don't know all this. I have no idea with all this business stuff you're talking about.
Yeah, I personally think that when I look at this, a lot of people like to say Square Enix to Sony. I don't think that one makes a lot of sense because they work really closely with Nintendo for a lot of games.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't make buying Square Enix worth it if you're going to cut that out then. Like you'd be overpaying for what you're going to end up actually putting on PlayStation. So I don't think Square Enix makes a lot of sense. I think like a Konami or a Sega would make a lot more sense for Sony if they were going to make a big purchase, but Sony doesn't normally make that. Sony doesn't do the billions normally. When I look at Sony, I think I wrote down 3 studios that I think would fit well for them. I wrote down Ember Labs, Remedy, and Young Horses because that's normally what they do. They'll work with a studio to make an exclusive game or two, and then they'll buy them if they think it goes well. And so they just recently did that with Housemarque after they did Returnal. They did it with Bluepoint after they've made plenty of games with Bluepoint. And so Ember Labs made Kena, and that game's reviewed really well. But it's a small team. It looks really good. It's one of the ones that I was saddest that I haven't played yet from this past year.
Kena and the Bridge of Spirits, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good. The graphics on it are amazing.
Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest complaint I've heard is like maybe they could flesh out like the combat and the gameplay a little bit. And so like I think that'd be an awesome one for Sony to buy and just give them resources. Like we'll bring in some programmers, you keep up the graphics and like the story, and we'll like work more on the behind the scenes stuff for you to make it all go together. So I think that'd be a great addition. And then Young Horses is the team that made Octodad and Bug Snacks. They made Bug Snacks.
Yeah.
And so like teams, and I think that'd just be another like weird, just small studio. I think that'd be a good studio actually to buy and say like, hey, like, do you guys want to make PSVR games?
Or just PS games.
Yeah, like just like let them do what they want. Like if you want to do it here, do it here. Like just make quirky games for us that like they, especially like they have good stories, but they work well for kids. And then Remedy is like the kind of the bigger purchase with Control and Alan Wake. But I think that their profile fits well with Sony. I've heard rumors about them making a PlayStation exclusive game. So I think those 3 would be more in like Sony's realm. And I think if Xbox were to make another big acquisition, I think it would be not one of like not EA, not Take-Two. I think those are just too. I don't think those are going to want to sell. Versus like Activision with all the problems they've been having in the public, I think that kind of made that deal possible. If I was gonna pick one, I'd say like maybe WB's gaming division, just to get those teams like Rocksteady and NetherRealm. But how about you, Wilcox? Do you have any ideas or thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree that I don't see EA ever selling. That would be, in my opinion, the dumbest thing they could possibly do with how much money they make off of all their sports games and just everything they do. They're definitely better suited to spreading it around. I don't know. Looking at this list, and I'm with Josh. I don't know, a lot of the business stuff. That's not my area of expertise or anything. But all I like, if I'm Sony, do you make a move maybe for Ubisoft and try to get Assassin's Creed as an exclusive?
I think that would anger a lot of people just the same way it angers a lot of people that Xbox buys stuff and keeps it exclusive. But I think it's an interesting idea, especially because Ubisoft makes so many different properties. I think that's definitely an interesting one.
Oh yeah, I definitely know it'd anger people because I'm a PlayStation person, but if I were an Xbox person, I'd definitely be angered by it. I just kept my eyes just kept like going back to Ubisoft and thinking, Assassin's Creed exclusive to PlayStation, like that wouldn't be like if you're gonna buy something, if you're Sony, you're gonna look for something you can do that with, and
Another tent pole.
yeah, and in my eyes, in my opinion, Ubisoft would be the move to get Assassin's Creed if they were to do it.
That'd be a huge IP. I thought Konami might be a good fit for Sony if they were going to make a big move, just because the IPs that are there have been associated with Sony. Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, those kind of things are already associated with Sony a little bit. So it wouldn't be one that would be out of character, other than like the size. Obviously, that'd be a very big acquisition for them.
Yes.
So you guys anyone have any final thoughts they want to pop in here before we move on?
I'm good.
Yeah, I got a couple.
All right, go ahead.
So there have been rumors for like a year or a little bit less that Sony has been in the talks with Square Enix and Konami about either exclusive partnering, if not purchasing of the company. And I know that's, like you said, that's kind of out of their realm, usually buying large companies. They usually buy little studios and then bring them in. But I will say Microsoft is starting to kind of force their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, if the game of chess between the two major companies is, I can own more game studios than you, Sony's gonna have to step up and buy some bangers.
Yeah.
It's
and
more
those
like
would be both. If they could pull both of those off, I know they're not the highest on your list over here, but those have such great IPs.
Mm-hmm.
They would make their money back in no time.
Yeah, it's more like a game of keep away. It's not that Sony necessarily wants to buy these people, it's that they want to buy them so Microsoft can't.
Yeah. What was the other? Oh, and then so potential Microsoft purchases. I don't like to think of that personally, but looking at this list, I would say if they make a purchase, Bandai Namco would be their big one. And there's a couple reasons. That's a weird one, but there's a couple reasons for that.
I'm actually on the same page with you with this.
Oh, good. I thought nobody else would be. But here's the big one, right? You cut off Bandai from Sony.
Mm.
So there's no more Elden Ring exclusives or From Software Bandai games. So no more Dark Souls. That forces From Software to be a Sony game exclusively. From Software is great, don't get me wrong, but that would force them to not work with Bandai anymore, and would put them on a smaller market.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big brain move if I've ever seen one in a business market in video gaming before.
Yeah, because it'd be hard to buy From Software the way it is, but if you take away their big publisher, it leaves them vulnerable.
Yeah, and Bandai does more than just that. They have like basically every anime game you've ever seen in your entire life.
So, yeah, the reason why I thought it'd be a good fit is Microsoft desperately wants to get some like Japanese studios, and Bandai Namco just comes out with JRPGs like no other, like plenty of JRPG games, and so being able to work with Bandai for that, I think it would just broaden Xbox scope, because like, oh, they bought Activision. I'm like, well, so like PC games and like the shooter are the biggest Activision games and Blizzard games. That kind of already is what Xbox is kind of about. So like it's on brand, but it doesn't like widen their scope. Bandai would give them a bigger breadth and variety of games.
Yeah. Which they already kind of have anyway. But it would just give them a whole, because when people think JRPG, at least when I think JRPG, usually I think Sony.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the JRPGs I grew up with, honestly, were either Nintendo or Sony. Xbox or Microsoft was not something I usually thought of too much.
Exactly.
And so that's part of the reason I say it would be a big brain move for them to buy it.
Yeah, and obviously, as we've seen, they have the money. If
Oh, well,
Bandai
yeah.
really is 15 million or billion, I mean,
Is what?
I said if Bandai really is 15 billion, then Microsoft would have the money.
Oh yeah, but from here they have to wait it out. They already just made a major purchase. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
And
They're not
so
just going to stack
it will
them.
depend on, like, you know, when they finally get caught up on that process of bringing in Activision and getting it paid off and all that. Then the question is, what's Bandai or who any of these companies on this list? What is their current value then? Because they could rise or just hit the ground. I mean, yeah, like it changes all the time. So
I think that's going to be the one of the hottest topics to talk about over the next like 3 to 5 years is like the arms race of who is going to acquire what studios. It's just going to be a thing that people want to talk about, people want to hear about, and I don't think it's going to go away any time soon.
yeah, I got one more weird like hot take. I
Let's
think
hear it.
Nintendo in the next 3 to 5 will buy out Sega
You do? Oh, that is interesting.
because they
see it.
already have Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they go ahead, because Nintendo has the money, they're like the Apple of video games, right? Like
Yeah.
almost no one gets to touch their games but themselves. So there's a point where most of their games anymore are mostly profit
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have to shell out, you know, like production money or developer money. They already have all that in house.
Yeah.
And so they have the money, especially if this is Sega's like value. I know Sega themselves don't have a lot of major like IPs, but if you buy out Sonic for $3.6 billion, you're going to get your money back, especially now that it has a major film.
Yeah.
And then they have Frontiers coming out. They announced that looks pretty cool. Like that would be a smart move, but
And I get
we'll
that.
see what happens. But
I get that Sonic is associated, obviously, you know, with the Dreamcast and the Sega consoles, but I'd say at this point in its life, Sonic is associated as much with Nintendo as he is Sega because of Smash Bros, because of like just how like times evolved, like and how long it's been since the last Sega console. Like he's associated with Nintendo. Uh,
Yep.
so I think it'd be a great acquisition. And within Sega, you get Yakuza, which you wouldn't necessarily probably make a Nintendo exclusive. You'd probably keep that multi-platform just because of the type of game it is. It doesn't really fit the Nintendo brand. But you get that. But then you'd also get Atlas because Atlas is under Sega.
oh, is it?
Yes, Sega bought Atlas a couple years ago, and so you could either turn Persona into a Nintendo exclusive in the way that Shin Megami Tensei has been, or you keep it on Nintendo and PlayStation, but now all of their releases come day and date with the Nintendo Switch or whatever their future console is going to be.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, so and I think with Persona 4, like people are begging Persona 4 Golden and Persona 5 to come to the Switch. So I think that would be a thing where it's not maybe Nintendo doesn't come in and shake everything up, but they just come to Atlas and say, "Hey, we're gonna give you some teams to help make sure all these games run on our console. You can keep doing what you're doing, but we're just gonna make sure they come day and date to Nintendo too."
Didn't they somebody said they've announced plans to bring Persona 4. It's like a new edition, right?
I believe that was just a rumor.
Was it?
That's all I've heard is the rumors of that.
I'm gonna look it up.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Go on. If I find something, I'll kind of jump in.
All right, that sounds good. So while we're talking about Nintendo, I think this is a good point to jump over to the Switch and it's a potential successor or a Pro model. I just want to clarify: the OLED is definitely not a Pro. It's a nicer version. Obviously, it's an upgrade from the original Switch with the bigger screen, the nicer screen. But it's the same CPU. It's running this games the exact same way. So do you guys think we're going to get an announcement of when the Switch 2 is coming, if we're getting a Switch Pro? What are your thoughts, Josh, on this one?
I don't think a Pro is gonna be a thing. I think if they're gonna do another one, it's just gonna be a Switch 2 or whatever.
What about you, Wilcox? Do you think a Switch Pro is going to be coming at all?
So if they're gonna make an announcement, I believe I'm the opposite of Josh. I think it is going to be a Pro if they make an announcement. I don't think they're going to do a Switch 2 just quite yet. I think the Switch currently is having enough success to where they're going to milk it for a little while longer before they bring out a new console.
Mm-hmm.
So if they do announce something, I think it'll more than likely be a Pro. Will they? I don't know. Maybe. I wouldn't, put money on it or anything, but if they make some kind of announcement that, they're bringing something else new in, I would say it would probably be a Pro rather than a Switch 2.
Mm-hmm. So, like, giving you some context, the Switch was originally announced in October of 2016. Then it released the spring of 17. The Wii U only had just over a 4-year lifespan before they ended up switching to the Switch, and I think that's because the Wii U obviously was not very successful financially.
Yeah.
The Switch is going into year 6, and that is traditionally the last year of a console's life cycle. So, traditionally, like, this would be the last year. I think this is going to be the longest console life cycle ever for a Nintendo home console. I think we're not going to get any announcements this year. I think the OLED is what they're going to ride into the Switch 2. So no announcements this year, and so that'll be year 6, year 7. They're going to keep going with in 2023, and I think they're going to have a similar release cycle to the original Switch. In late 2023, they'll announce something for spring 2024, and that's going to be Switch 2 or whatever their new console is going to be. My guess is it's going to be a hybrid console still. How about you guys? Do you think they're still going to stick with the Switch model of it? You can play it handheld and you can play it as a home console?
Yes.
I don't see why you wouldn't. It's such a great idea, and I think people love it, so why wouldn't you stick with it?
It really is.
So good.
I think it's their big advantage over Microsoft and Sony right now is the fact that they're able to fold in now, because they've always kind of been separated. Their home market versus their handheld market. Being able to fold those into one is like almost the perfect package, because they have a lot of franchises that have like been basically just Game Boy or DS kind of titles, and they have a lot of ones that are normally only on the home console. So being able to have one console and to be able to have all of Nintendo's franchises, I think has been awesome. And the Switch has something that I've heard called the Switch effect, where every franchise that's basically come out in the Switch has had its bestseller. Smash, Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, Fire Emblem. Metroid now is Dread's going to be the highest selling Metroid game probably. Like every one that they come out with ends up just being the highest seller ever. So I don't know why they wouldn't continue down this model. But also, never try to predict Nintendo. You can never get it right.
I feel like it's important to highlight, because you said that you felt like that was what they had over Microsoft and Sony. I think specifically for Nintendo, this model of a gaming system works. I don't know that it would quite work as well with Sony or Microsoft because of the game variety they have compared to where you have Nintendo, where you have the Mario games with your Super Smash, your Mario Kart, your Mario Parties, you have Animal Crossing, you have all those type of games that I feel work better with, like, taking it up and handhelding it and, like getting together with a group and you all have your little handhelds together playing the same game. I feel like the games that Nintendo has better suits that style, so why would you go away from that?
Especially with the graphical style. Like the graphical style is all right being on a quote unquote underpowered machine because of the way like Nintendo designs their game. And they're still beautiful, but they're not the kind of technical powerhouses that Sony and Xbox are trying to be. Yeah. They're just different. Let's kind of hop into a not as happy topic as talking about a new Switch, which is kind of fun to talk about. Games that we think will get delayed out of 2022. So I'm kind of only want to talk about games that have a date for 2022, because obviously if it doesn't have a date, you can't really get delayed, even if it like internally is being delayed. So here's a list of some games that got delayed out of 2021 into 2022 this upcoming year. Diablo Immortal, Horizon Forbidden West, Ghostwire Tokyo, God of War Ragnarok, Gotham Knights, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Lord of the Rings Gollum, and Rainbow Six Extraction. Now, obviously, that is not the complete list. That is just a list of some of the top games that got delayed. And there was also plenty of games that got delayed last year, but just didn't fall out of 2021. I know me and one of you guys on here have the same thought on this. So, Josh, why don't you start, and then we can kind of piggyback off this one, because this is the one that I think is going to be the hottest take out of all of them.
Okay, well, Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, I believe, is not going to be released this year.
Me too.
I gotta ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
I gotta ask reasonings on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Give them your reasons.
Not much of it is known a lot about it. It got announced at E3 that time, and then we have one trailer. I don't think it's gonna come out this year.
Okay, I was just curious. Go ahead.
You go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay, I disagree. Just because usually Nintendo follows a pattern with their major IPs. They changed it up a little bit for the release of the Switch, where they had Mario and Zelda drop in the same year. But that alone was just to get games on the Switch, because if you took those out, they had nothing. But usually they alternate major IPs, and both of those games, Mario and Zelda, are both up for new titles. Zelda's the only one we heard of as far as a major title. There's rumors of Odyssey 2 floating around. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a summer release trailer and get a release in December for Breath of the Wild 2, or whatever they want to call it, the new Zelda title. Yeah. And then next year we'll get Odyssey 2, or whatever they want to call the next Mario game.
I like that you brought it there, because that's exactly why the reason I think it is going to fall out of 2022. I think that it needs a little more time to bake, and what they're going to do is they're going to give them more than enough time. It's going to be the thing where, it maybe could come out in the fall of this year, but they're going to let it sit. They're going to let it come out in the spring of next year, and that there will be a Mario game this fall that goes with the Mario movie. Maybe it's not based off the movie, but I think they want a Mario game to be out with the Mario movie, whether it's the new 3D one and Odyssey 2, maybe it's a new 2D one, but the next big Mario platformer that comes out will be, I believe, this fall or this holiday season, and then Breath of the Wild 2 will get pushed to spring, where they just polish it. Maybe the game could have come out this year, but they're going to work on it, they're going to polish it up, and it will be ready for spring, and it's going to be another classic probably.
Okay.
Any other games that you guys have? I have, well, I guess while we're on Mario, I think Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope gets delayed out of this year. The game that is a strategy RPG from Ubisoft that uses Mario. I think that game's in trouble. I think they are being not that I think it's in trouble, that's probably a hasty way of saying it. I think they are being very ambitious with this title. It's a step up from the last one, and I think the team's probably going to run into some issues that will just end up pushing the game out of this year, sadly. I also have any of you guys played Deathloop from this year?
No, but I've seen gameplay and stuff of it.
Yeah, so I've been able to just dabble in it a little bit. And so Arcane's got a new shooter coming out next year, or this upcoming year, called Redfall. I believe it's a 4-player co-op shooter, where you're shooting vampires, I believe. I think that this is one where we haven't heard a lot about it, and Microsoft's already shown a willingness to delay games out if they're not ready. And so I think this game, they want it to come out this year. They're coming hot off of a lot of other projects, and I wouldn't be surprised if Arcane just needs a little more time to bake that game, and it comes out as an early 2023 release.
I'll agree to that. I also think the Hogwarts Legacy is getting delayed again.
Again.
Yeah, they've already announced that it was it's basically they were gonna the prediction was they were gonna show footage at E3 this year, But nobody, apparently the people that keep in touch with developers has not heard from them in a long time. And so the prediction is they're not going to have a thing at E3 this year, and then it's going to get pushed back to the beginning of next year. So I'm going to go along with that. That's got some credibility to it, in my opinion. And honestly, as ambitious as that game sounds, and how much I just want to be a Hogwarts student, because who doesn't? Like, I'd say give them as much time as they want. If they want to push back, push back.
Yeah, take your time, especially because that studio's never made a game like this. It kind of reminds me of when this isn't like an apples to apples comparison, but when Guerrilla made Horizon Zero Dawn, it was their first kind of game like that, and I think Horizon Zero Dawn has some rough edges. I really think it does, and so I think if Avalanche takes their time and really just take as much time as you need, because I know it's had some development problems with J.K. Rowling and some of the other studio heads or producers on the game that have been driven out of the game. So take as much time as you need. We'll all be very disappointed if this game's not good. So please take your time.
Yes. 100%.
Do you guys have any other games you think are going to fall out this year? Obviously, we don't want any of these games to fall out, but we are realists.
Yeah, Harry Potter was my big one, just because nobody's heard anything about this game in like forever.
Mm-hmm. All right, so here at the end, we're just going to talk about some general predictions. These are like not general, not any questions that I want to be answered, but obviously I can't think of everything, and I know you guys have a lot of thoughts. So this is the time where I just want to open up to like any prediction that you have. What are you kind of thinking? What do you have thoughts on? Because like obviously I like the stuff that I like, and I don't think of everything. What are some thoughts that you guys have for this year? How about we start with Wilcox? What do you think is going to be coming, or what are some predictions you have for this upcoming year, 2022?
So I got two that I think we're going to be getting. Number one is I am almost positive that probably at some point this year we're going to get another Star Wars game announced of some sort, because it seems like we get another Star Wars game like every other year.
The KOTOR game that's supposed to be like getting like full announcements and stuff this year.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get.
Did you see the rumor about what is it called? Fallen Order 2? People think it's going to be announced and released this year.
Yeah,
I don't buy that, but I know a lot of people are talking about it.
Maybe announced, definitely not released. I could see it being announced, but not released. That was one that I thought, maybe getting a Fallen Order 2, the official, or more with the KOTOR, which I'm really excited about.
You guys see the rumor for that one? For new battle mechanics?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to play like God of War, so third person like action, which I'm totally okay with.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people were upset with like the possible change, and my thought is I've never heard someone say, "Yo, you gotta play KOTOR because the combat's so good."
It's the worst part of the game.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah. Like that is the part that if they change, I'm like, okay, like that's not the part that I think really makes the game. So I think people more play it for like the story and the lore and like the ability to be a Sith or a Jedi. So
yes. I am most excited about that simply because it will be a more modern version of that game in which I can be a Sith or a Jedi. And of course, anybody who knows me knows I'm always going with the Sith, because bad guys rule. And then secondly, after that, then this is one that I am so excited for. Probably the thing I'm most excited for of any game announcement that I'm waiting for. I think we get probably later in the year some new Mass Effect 4 information from BioWare.
So you think this is going to or do you think this is going to come before any Dragon Age 4 update?
Before any Dragon Age, I don't know. Maybe after. I don't think, I'm not expecting them to be like, oh yeah, Mass Effect 4 coming in a year. I think we're just going to get some kind of new information of some sort, whether it is, another trailer, like a more official trailer than what we've already gotten. Because right now what we've gotten is Mass Effect is going to return or whatever. Like it's
Yeah.
we know that they have plans for one and that they're possibly working on one. That's
Mhm.
all we know right now. I think we get something more official, like a definite yes, this is in the works. It is coming. Like a more just a really official announcement that yes, there is in fact one that we're like working on.
Yeah. While I would love to get that, I honestly think they are so worried about making sure the game is set before they announce anything because like they can go in a number of different directions. I don't think we're going to hear anything this year, and then we'll hear something like once like they are pretty ready to give us a release date, and I just don't think they're there yet. But
Yeah.
I could see it. I could definitely see it.
As long as I get some new information of some sort, that will get me through. I don't need a release date yet. Just give me something
Yeah,
to
I
hold
could
me
see
over
us
until then.
instead of getting a like trailer, I could see us getting like maybe a dev's diary
Yeah.
or maybe just a press release with some information. But yeah, that's something I hope's true. I definitely hope you're right.
Yeah.
I want to come in here with one, and maybe this one should be like maybe under like more of our like spicier predictions. But the reason the end part of it's spicy. I think the beginning part of this is a kind of a common sense prediction. Persona 25th anniversary is going to end with the announcement of Persona 6. So I think it ends like in September or something like that. So whenever it ends and they do like their last announcement for the anniversary, it's going to be the Persona 6 announcement. I think we all expect that. What I am going to maybe come in with a little bit of a hotter take, I'm pretty sure it's going to be another PlayStation console exclusive. Maybe it has a PC option. But like no Xbox, no Nintendo. It's just going to be PlayStation. It's going to be cross-gen between PS4 and PS5. Like I said, maybe PC, but it's going to be a console exclusive. And I really believe this game's going to have a female main character option. What do you think about that, Josh? You on board with you believe there's going to be a female main character?
I know a lot of people want one after what they did with Persona 3 Portable, having a female option. I think there's a lot of chance of them adding one.
How about you, Wes? What do you think about Persona 6 and its possibilities?
Okay, so I agree. I think towards the end, if not at the very end of their anniversary celebration, they're going to announce it. They've said they have like 4 or 5 titles they're working on. Did you guys hear about that one?
Yes.
Okay.
And so like the
on that, but I think a Persona 5 Arena will come in because they already have the dance game for it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the only thing they're missing is an arena fighter for 5, because it seems like every time they get the main title, you get the dance, and you get an arena, and then the new title comes out or gets announced. So I think we're gonna get an arena release either this year or next year. They'll go ahead and announce 6. I think they're gonna give people the option to play male or female, and kind of do what Ubisoft did for Assassin's Creed, and have like one of them be like lore specific, but they give players the option to play as either one.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because I think, and not that I'm against, because I don't really care what gender or whatever that my character is, as long as the story is good and the gameplay is good. I don't really care.
Yes,
I think there's enough people out there that do care. That if they do that, they might alienate a good section of people, and I think so. If they go the route of having one, they will split it and let you pick.
That's what I think too. I think there's too many. How do I say this without offending people? I think there's too many people that like to play those games as a dating simulator. That if there's only a female option where you like can only be with guys, they will be very upset. So that's why I think it will be an option, because they don't want to alienate their fans that play the game for that reason.
Yeah, you leave me out of this, okay?
You and me, we are not the same.
Yeah.
I have another announcement here, and this one makes me sad, but I really think it's true. No Final Fantasy 16 in 2022. I think it's going to come out next year. And I don't think we're gonna hear a peep about Final Fantasy 7 Part 2. Like nothing. Like no, like maybe like just a hey, like the development's coming fine. But other than that, like we're not going to get a trailer, we're not going to get like a dev diary of like how the game's going. Like we're not going to see anything. I don't think that game is close. I really don't, and it makes me sad.
I
But I don't think
agree.
it's coming at all.
I agree 100% on the Final Fantasy VII Part 2 because they keep putting out this re-enhanced version of Integrate. Like they just keep pushing that, and it's like they have to have a reason for doing that, and it's because I think they're having problems with making 7 Part 2.
I think they are too, because a lot of people can say that, they can build off what they did with Part 1, and to some extent, yes, they can reuse the combat. The combat can be the same, but Part 1 is a very linear game. And everything that happens after Midgard is not really, like, it's linear in the fact that the story has to progress in a certain way. But then, like, in the original, now it's open world, you can go wherever you want. Eventually, once you start unlocking certain transportation styles. But, like, I don't think there's a clear stopping point either. So, like, they gotta make sure they're adding new content like they did with the original, and, like, I don't know if they have the story completely ironed out. I think, sadly, that this game's, like, a long ways off, like 2025 maybe.
I'm thinking 3 years before we see the game.
Yeah, I think it's not, and like I heard a lot of rumblings, but I think it's gonna come, like we're gonna hear a big update and it'll come out next year. No chance, absolutely no chance in my opinion.
Maybe hear about it next year.
Maybe.
2024 is more hopeful, and 25 release is my opinion.
Yeah, me too. All right,
I got
Josh,
a couple.
or what? Yeah, go ahead, West. Get in
I
there.
got a couple, and these are all, again, I talked about them a little bit, but the remakes that people keep talking about that I'm excited for, I think we're going to get a System Shock update, if not a release date this year. I really hope we do, especially before we get a BioShock update and release day, because I'm also excited for that too. The Dead Space remake, they already have the physics engine done, like in its entirety, and has like test runs in it. So I'm assuming the rest of the game is probably getting close to being done.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see those games. And then I mentioned KOTOR earlier. That one they've been talking about for a while. But I think we're going to hear about those 3. And then I forgot to add BioShock until I said System Shock. They had that whole leak about like the title.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're finally going to get something on that. I don't think we'll get a trailer. We might get like a dev's diary, or we might
get a JPEG.
We might get a still frame, or something to that effect. And then my last one is Metroid Prime 4. I think we're finally going to get at least a trailer for it.
You are more optimistic than me.
Yeah, hopeful. I think we're going to, because it's been in the metasphere for like 8 years now.
Yeah.
So they gotta give us something, which I know they gave us Dread, but that's a whole different storyline.
Yeah. The reason why I'm not optimistic is like after like I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years in when they said, hey, like development went badly, we're like scrapping everything and restarting.
Yeah.
After they said that, I think they don't want to show us anything unless they're very confident in it to like expect to give us confidence. So that way, like, I don't think they're going to show anything early unless it's really ready. And I just don't think it's going to be ready. They could show us like something small, but I think that's just going to cause people to worry more if they showed us something small. So I think they're going to wait until they have like a full blowout. And they're like, oh, it's still good. Like, yeah, we were worrying for nothing, but I think actually the worry is very justified. I'm very nervous about that game.
Gotcha.
All right, Josh, or West, you got any more?
No, that was it.
All right, Josh, what do you have for some of your other predictions?
I don't really have any predictions for like games that are could come out this year. I have some games that I'm interested at that are coming out this year. I have a date, which are superhero games coming out.
Okay.
So there's Gotham Knights, which looks really cool. You get just like taking the spotlight off of Batman and showing his sidekicks like Nightwing, Red Hood, and all of them.
And that is from the team that made Batman Origins, right? WB Montreal, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one is the Suicide Squad game.
That's the one I'm excited for.
Yeah, you get to play against the Justice League. Gotta fight Superman.
And then that one's by Rocksteady. I think that's why I'm a little more confident in that one, is because like I like Rocksteady, I like the Batman Arkham games, and I'm just like maybe foolishly, but like I kind of just trust them, and I think they're gonna do a good job because I like the studio.
You trust them too much, you get Tank Simulator 5.
I actually really like Arkham Knight.
Oh, I do too, but it's still Tank Simulator 5. Like it's my favorite Batman game, but it's still Tank Sim.
Yeah. All right, and then I got a couple spicy ones. I don't know about you guys. I'll start off with the spicy one. I've been hearing there's a lot of buzz about there was the Last of Us remake that they were going to make. A new studio was going to make, the San Diego studio, and then basically Naughty Dog just took that over. There's still no confirmation about any of that. That's all still just reports, I believe, from Jason Schreier. But I think that the Last of Us remake is Sony's big holiday game this year. I think it is coming out this year. They want it to kind of like I was saying with the Mario movie. I think they want it to kind of line up with the Last of Us TV show. And I think its two big selling points are it's going to be in the Last of Us Part 2 gameplay style. So like it'll have like that melee combat that Last of Us Part 2 has, and it'll have like the stealth mechanics that it has, which I think are amazing. So that part would be welcome. The part that I'm nervous about, and I think that they are going to do, is they're going to make narrative changes to the original game. Not big ones, but they are going to make changes that do either one of two things. One, to make it kind of like the TV show. I think that's less likely. I don't think they want to change it to make it like the TV show, but I think it's a possibility. What I really think they're going to do is they're going to add stuff from Part 2 and fold that into Part 1 to make Part 2 make more sense. So maybe we have a Abby section, or maybe we have another section with the Fireflies that is folded into the game, and I think that could be risky because I think Last of Us Part 1 is like a masterpiece and they shouldn't mess with the story, but I think they're going to. I think they're going to make a remake and they're going to mess with the story, and it's going to be really mixed on what people like and what people don't. What do you guys think about that, a new Last of Us remake?
I'm okay with the concept. I don't mind if they try to wrap a little more into like part of Part 2 into the first game, just because like you have these characters that come in at the beginning of 2 for like no reason other than like, oh, other person, and just blow him away. Mm-hmm. Like I know there's more to it than that, and that's like a simplification. But Joel walks up to these people, kind of, and they just literally turn around and destroy him.
Yeah, and as the player, I have no idea why.
Yeah, like there's a little bit of context, like, oh, he could be a bad guy, like I get it. But there's like 5 of you, and this is one guy. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I kind of hope they do, just for Joel's death to make sense. Sorry, spoilers for anybody who hasn't played.
Yeah, I think most people know by now that really wanted to play.
Yeah, but I want that to make sense because when I played it, I about stopped playing the game when that happened.
It was kind of shocking. It did kind of come out of nowhere, the way they handled it.
Yeah. So, I hope.
Yeah, and then another one, some of you guys might know that my favorite Nintendo franchise right now is Fire Emblem. And I've been hearing buzz about 2 new games, and this is more of less of a prediction, more of a I hope this is true. 2 new Fire Emblem announcements this year. One, a brand new game that is going to come out this year. Another, a remake of Fire Emblem 4, Genealogy of the Holy War. That's the one I'm really excited about, because I don't want to go back and try to find a modded version of the game since it only came out in Japanese and I have to play the old SNES version. I want them to just do a remake like they did for Shadows of Valentia, make it nice and new with the new support systems they do, and just come out with that. So I'm going to be super excited if they do that. What do you think, Josh? Do you think I'm getting any Fire Emblem this year or no?
No.
You just like to crush my dreams. You're a dream crusher.
Yeah, crush them real hard.
But yeah, that's less of a prediction, more of a I've heard the rumors and I'm gonna buy all in. Josh, I know you got a couple sleeper hits you like for 2022.
Yeah, Triangle Strategy.
Yes.
JRPG.
Yes.
I love JRPGs. Looks great.
If anyone wants to watch my most anticipated games of 2022, Triangle Strategy came in at number 2, so I'm very excited.
I actually haven't seen it. Like, I've seen the name pop up. I haven't looked up anything on it.
Watch one of the original trailers. I'll send it to you after this. There's one trailer that I just absolutely love that is just amazing.
Is that the game that's being made by the people that did Bravely Default?
Yes, and did Octopath Traveler.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm very excited for that one. And then Josh, you're also excited about Tiny Tina, right?
I saw this Tiny Tina's Wonderland. I saw it like it's set in Borderlands, and that is that distinct art style, and it caught my eye.
I thought it was a cool concept.
It is.
It's inspired by like D&D tabletop RPG stuff.
It kind of reminded me of the Lego movie, if you guys have seen that, and it's like, you know, all the stuff's I know that's not the first movie that do this kind of concept, but like stuff's taking place on the board, and like to them it's like reality while there's this person that's playing the game above them.
Yeah. Well, it's a pull from, was it 2 that had a DLC on it?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's why I think everybody loved that DLC. Like, I'm pretty sure they have now made that DLC like a standalone. I think it's called the One Shot. Isn't that what just came out? Tiny Tina's One Shot?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just the DLC story. Her like D&D or whatever. No, what's it called? B&B. Badasses and Bunkers. It's like her story from that DLC is now that, and everybody loved it.
Okay.
And so thus we get this game, and it will be good. I promise you it will be good. Like, I haven't played it, but it'll be good.
The last trailer I really liked. I wasn't kind of sold on it until the last trailer. The last trailer I thought was super cool. Wilcox, do you have any last dreams or predictions?
All right. Well, I already told you I got a really, really spicy one that's comical, and one.
Don't worry, Josh will kill your dreams. So go ahead and give it to us.
Okay. So, and he can't kill my dreams because my dreams are already killed with this one. Because I know it's never gonna happen. No matter how many times I tweet Nintendo, no matter how many times I talk about it, this is never gonna happen because Nintendo hates me. Donkey Kong 64 sequel. Give it to me, Nintendo, please.
Oh my gosh.
I want it so badly.
But they can't. Rare owns the properties to that game, which is owned by Microsoft.
They don't own Donkey Kong, though.
They own the properties to the game.
Do they?
Yes, sure it's the first title that opens up is Rare.
I don't think that means they own that, though.
I know Rare helped with it and was part of it, but Rare also helped with Donkey Kong Country, and Nintendo still produces Donkey Kong Countries.
Like, I know they have the ports over, and it still has Rareware like emblem. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure there's like a weird thing. There's a reason why they never made another one.
So here's what I'm reading here. So Rare doesn't own Donkey Kong, but it does own the rights to Donkey Kong 64. So we could get a Donkey Kong 64 remake on Xbox.
Yeah. As to say, I knew that Nintendo didn't own 64 edition, like the 64 game.
Actually, what I'm reading here is no, we couldn't get that because they
don't own
Donkey Kong anymore. Donkey Kong technically owns the IP still, so we probably won't get a Donkey Kong 64 remake.
You can get something similar to it.
Basically, this sounds really messy.
It is.
And Wilcox, it sounds like your dreams have officially been crushed.
Okay, so my official spicy take is that Microsoft is going to sell Rare back to Nintendo, and then they're going to give me my Donkey Kong 64 remake.
Spicy.
I love it. And
Nintendo's also going to take over Sea of Thieves because, Rare does Sea of Thieves. So Nintendo's going to take over Sea of Thieves, and Rare is going to be bought by them. And so that's my big spicy take for 2022.
Crazy year, man.
Make it happen.
That would be pretty crazy.
Oh, dude, no, the whole world would explode.
More than Activision?
What?
More than Activision?
Yeah, because Activision wasn't owned by somebody else.
True.
If it takes the world exploding to get me my Donkey Kong 64 sequel, then sorry world, you can explode for all I care.
Well, it does sound like there might be hope for stuff like that because we're possibly getting GoldenEye back.
Oh, okay.
I did
There's
see that.
been what?
I said I did see that.
Yeah, because originally there's a build. I have a copy of it. There was a build for the 360, which the version we're gonna get isn't that one. It's gonna be a port of the N64 that people have been talking about. But either way, dude, you just slap an online multiplayer. You don't even need the story to that game. Like
Okay,
literally, just give us 007 online.
So this might be a like weird take, but I've only played it once, and I never played it originally, and I did not like the way it controlled. But maybe just because I never played it originally.
Was it your first-person shooter?
No.
That's why.
Yeah,
You have played cleaner first-person shooters since then.
and it just felt weird.
Yes, it's the same thing with people that like love Oblivion, and then they convince someone that's played Skyrim to play Oblivion, and people that do that hate Oblivion.
That makes
because
sense.
Skyrim is just a cleaner game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the same phenomena, but
I guess I could always hold out on the hope that maybe Microsoft/Rare will just, say, "Hey, Nintendo, you want to do a collab?" So I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities because Microsoft and Rare did do the collab with Disney for the Pirates of the Caribbean event on Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's very unlikely and probably never going to happen. But I'm always going to hold out hope for the possibility that I finally get my DK64 sequel.
Wilcox, I applaud you. You're on the same level as everyone still wanting a new Half-Life game. Honestly,
funny.
You have more faith than the people that want a new Half-Life game. Just because
it's just how much I love that game.
Steam/Valve could put that game out essentially whenever they wanted to, because they own the title, so they could make it and put it out, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you're holding out this much hope for a game that physically doesn't have the legal ability to happen is just astounding.
All they gotta do is get on the same page for a little bit. It's all they gotta do.
I heard a joke recently, and it's like, I'm pretty sure this is a Valve pitch meeting. They go in for the work that day, and they say, all right, let's maybe think about drawing some logos for Half-Life 3. We'll think about it. And then after 15 minutes, they go, all right, great work, everyone. Let's go home.
Yeah.
And then they do that every day, and that's why you never get a new Half-Life. But yeah, Wes, do you have any final predictions for us for 2022?
Nothing. No, not really. I mean, there's stuff that I hope for, but
yeah,
nothing that just jumps out.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one more though.
All right, go ahead.
I think that we will finally, and this is maybe just another hope, probably more than likely. I think we get something on GTA 6 finally by the end of the year.
Maybe it's possible, but who knows?
Because I'm looking, and GTA 5 is going into about year 9. There was a 8-year period between the Red Dead Redemption games. So we got to be getting close at some point. They can only milk GTA 5 for so long.
That's where you're wrong, actually, though. They can actually milk it forever.
And
people will keep buying it, and people will keep spending money on it. And I'm pretty sure that when the Earth explodes from a supernova or something, GTA will still be making money.
No. The Earth's going to explode because Microsoft's going to sell Rare to Nintendo.
Yeah, I'm just over here making the world explode today with my takes.
Yeah.
But no, I think it is very possible because GTA 5 is coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X. I think in March, maybe. I don't remember exactly when. It's coming sometime early this year.
Yeah.
It's officially getting put on the new current gen. And so I think within either, by the end of the year or sometime next year, that we're going to not get an announcement like, hey, it's coming next year or whatever. I think we could be hearing more talks about it, though, such as like location wise, like where's it gonna take place? Are we gonna go back? Maybe go back to Liberty City. We're gonna go to a completely new city. I think we could get something within the next year or two.
And they already
Yeah,
said
maybe-
about
like across America.
Did they? Okay.
I
I knew-
thought
I
I
knew
heard
that
something
was-
like it has 3 locations.
Well,
I
yeah,
heard.
no, I don't mean like
yeah.
they're gonna remake the United States, but like you're gonna be able to visit multiple large cities across the entire United States.
I
I'd be
may be
so okay
wrong
with
hearing this, but I thought I heard it's going to have Vice City, Liberty City, and San Andreas. Not San Andreas. Where is the one that fives take place?
Los Santos.
Los Santos. There it is.
Yeah,
I heard it's
the
going to have
state,
all 3
yeah.
of those.
I mean, that's
Like,
that's
obviously,
fine.
That
I don't-
could not be. Yeah, but that's what I heard.
I think you're more likely to hear about what's the game that the guys that used to work for them are making? Is it Everywhere?
I'm not sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
The original like head developers of the GTA franchise branched off and made their own studio.
Yeah, I saw that he left, but I didn't hear anything about what he's making.
Yeah, he's making his own version of GTA 5, quote unquote,
Oh,
but
wow.
it's supposed to be larger than that.
Jeez.
I'll try to when we get done, I'll find like the video or the article on it and I'll send it to you guys.
All
I
right.
think it's called Everywhere or something like that.
Gotcha. All right, and so I think we've talked about everything. We got 2022 down perfectly. If any of these predictions are wrong, then I can say that is for sure the Dream Crusher's fault. But other than that, I think we've basically nailed everything. I would be surprised if we don't get 100% of these right. I'm gonna be honest. No, I'm just kidding.
If we get 100% of these right, the world definitely will explode.
Then the world will explode because that means Rare is now back with Nintendo.
Hey,
Um,
you know what? Weirder things have happened. Okay.
Yeah, but it's been a fun conversation, guys. We'll have to do this again for
sir.
another episode when we have a new topic. But thanks for joining me, Josh, Willboy, and Stud of the West. I'm glad to have you.
It's a good time.
Yeah, awesome time. Had fun.
All right, and then I guess thank all of you guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.